Faith is not fantasy. Faith is not denial of reality. Faith is not sitting still, hoping things will magically fall into place. Faith is vision with movement. It is belief dressed in strategy. It is trust that leads to action. Too many people are praying for miracles they're not prepared to manage. They're believing for opportunities they've made no room to receive. They're asking for elevation with no plan for the weight that comes with it. Faith does not dismiss planning. It demands it, because God does not bless laziness, confusion, or chaos. He blesses order, structure, and intentional preparation. The Bible says faith without works is dead. But let's make that even clearer. Faith without a plan is directionless. It has no target, no system, no movement. If you say you're believing for something, the question is, what plan have you put in place to walk toward it? We're not talking about controlling outcomes. We're talking about aligning with God's nature. He is a God of systems, a God of design, a God who created the universe with order and purpose. And if you are made in His image, you are not supposed to live randomly. You are supposed to live intentionally, with clarity, with vision, with structure. This message is for the dreamer who's tired of circling the same mountain, for the believer who's frustrated by delay, not realizing it's a lack of preparation, for the person who has vision but feels stuck. Faith will carry you, yes, but only when your feet are moving. And today we're going to walk through 8 powerful truths to show you why your faith needs a plan to live, grow, and produce results. Faith isn't about walking in the dark with no idea where you're going. Faith is having a vision so clear that you begin building toward it even when no one else sees it. It's not ignorance, it's insight. Faith sees beyond the visible into the possible. And when you can see something that others can't, it becomes your responsibility to build a plan to bring it into reality. In Hebrews 11:01, it says, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. This isn't a poetic verse, it's a blueprint. Faith gives form to what's invisible. But to manifest that vision, you need a structure. That's where planning comes in. Planning is not a lack of faith, it is faith in motion. It's saying, I see what God showed me, and I'm moving accordingly. A man who believes he's going to build a house doesn't just pray for bricks to fall from the sky. He drafts a blueprint. He calls contractors. He checks zoning laws. He prepares permits. He measures the land. He envisions where the living room will be and where the bedrooms will sit. Why? Because what he sees is real to him. The invisible becomes visible the moment he commits to a plan. Imagine someone saying they have faith, they'll start a business, but they've never written a business plan, researched the market, or identified a customer. That's not faith, that's fantasy. Faith demands that you treat the unseen as real enough to plan for. It's the evidence of what hasn't happened yet, and your plan becomes the testimony. Think of Noah. God told him rain was coming. Noah had never seen rain, but because he believed God, he planned. He didn't wait to see the first drop before he picked up a hammer. He built the ark when the skies were still clear. That's vision-based faith. That's building on what you believe, not what you see. That's divine planning. Many people claim they're waiting on God, but the truth is, God is waiting on them. You cannot claim to walk by faith and sit idle. If you say you're going to college, apply. If you say you believe in marriage, prepare your character. If you say you'll write a book, start researching your topic. Faith doesn't demand sight, but it demands steps. Children show us this principle so clearly. A child believes her father when he says, we're going to the park tomorrow. She doesn't question the car, the weather, or the gas money. She lays out her clothes the night before. She packs her backpack. She tells her friends. Her faith causes her to plan. Why? Because she trusts the one who made the promise. Faith is not hoping something might happen. It's planning as though it's already set in motion. Vision is the language of faith, and planning is its translator. When you plan, you give voice and structure to what you've seen in your heart. You turn potential into a path. People often say, I'm just waiting on a sign. But true faith doesn't need signs. It becomes the sign. The plan you write down, the calendar you map out, the budget you prepare. These become the signs that your faith is alive. Without a plan, your faith has no evidence. It's like a seed with no soil. If you truly believe in what you're praying for, there will be evidence in your schedule, your habits, your discipline. Your life will start bending in the direction of your vision. If not, you're not walking in faith, you're walking in circles. Faith is not just belief, it is belief expressed through action. James 2:17 puts it clearly, faith without works is dead. That doesn't mean faith without miracles or emotions. It means faith without action is lifeless. But what kind of action? Strategic, intentional, purpose-driven action. In other words, a plan. You can say you believe all day, but until you start doing something about it, your faith is still on life support. And action without planning is motion without direction. It's running in place. Planning gives your faith direction. It turns chaos into order. It transforms dreams into steps. If you believe God is calling you to impact lives through a nonprofit, that belief must show up in your calendar and in your notes. You should have goals. You should have timelines. You should have contacts to call, mentors to consult, and skills you're learning. That's what works looks like. It's not random movement. It's focused planning. In Luke 14:28, Jesus asked, "Which of you intending to build a tower does not first sit down and count the cost?" He wasn't talking about finances alone. He was talking about readiness. You can't build anything of value without a plan. Even Jesus emphasized the need to calculate, to evaluate, to prepare. If he could say that, who are we to just wing it and call it faith? A great example is the story of Nehemiah. When he heard Jerusalem's walls were broken down, he didn't just cry and pray. He developed a plan. He secured letters from the king. He calculated how long he would be gone. He surveyed the damage. And then, only then, did he build. His faith was powerful, but his plan made it practical. Too many believers are spiritually inspired, but practically unprepared. They have anointing, but no administration. They have fire, but no framework. Faith must be followed by works, and works must be shaped by planning. You don't stumble into destiny, you step into it deliberately. Planning is how you honor the vision. It's how you take what God has placed in your spirit and start molding it with your hands. Faith says it is possible. Planning says, here's how we'll do it. That combination changes everything. A farmer who believes in harvest does not wait for a miracle. He prepares the land. He studies the seasons. He sharpens his tools. He knows that God brings increase, but man must do the planting. Without works, his field stays empty. Without a plan, his seed goes to waste. Planning also protects your faith from emotional burnout. When you don't have a plan, every delay feels like denial. But when you've mapped out your steps, you know what season you're in. You can keep believing even when it's low because your faith is guided by structure, not feelings. Many people fail not because God didn't answer their prayers, but because they never positioned themselves for the answer. Faith must do more than feel. It must move. And movement without direction is failure in disguise. That's why a plan is not optional. It's essential. When your faith becomes visible in your habits, schedules, and commitments, you attract the favor of God and the cooperation of people. Vision alone won't get you there. But vision backed by a plan, step by step, day by day, that will. God is a God of preparation. Nothing he does is random, rushed, or reactionary. Creation itself is the perfect picture of deliberate order. Before God created man, he created the environment. He didn't place man in chaos. He placed man in a fully resourced, carefully prepared garden. That shows us that preparation is not just wise, it's divine. Before light existed, God assessed the void. He didn't panic. He spoke order into disorder. Each day of creation was intentional. The light came before the plants. The waters were separated before fish could swim. Birds had a sky before they had wings. God is not the author of confusion. He is the master planner. When you walk in faith without planning, you are out of sync with divine nature. God does not bless mess. He blesses order. He favors preparation. And when you imitate that nature, when you sit down and map out what you believe for, he responds to that. Think of Joseph. He had a dream as a teenager, but it took years of preparation for that dream to come to pass. The preparation wasn't always glamorous. It included slavery, betrayal, false accusations, and prison. But each stage was part of a bigger plan. When Joseph finally stood before Pharaoh, he didn't just interpret a dream, he presented a plan to save a nation. Joseph's gift opened the door, but his plan gave him authority. Faith gave him vision, but preparation gave him influence. His ability to prepare for 7 years of famine after 7 years of abundance was what saved Egypt. If Joseph had faith but no plan, millions would have died. Planning isn't an interruption to faith. It's the proof that faith is real. Even Jesus spent 30 years preparing for 3 years of ministry. That ratio should speak volumes. In those 30 years, he learned the culture, studied the scriptures, mastered discipline, and worked with his hands. When his time came, he didn't improvise. He moved with precision. Every healing, every parable, every journey was intentional. Nothing was random. When you plan, you align yourself with divine rhythm. Preparation gives birth to excellence. Faith says, I believe I'm called to speak. Preparation says, let me study communication, understand my audience, and refine my message. Faith says, I'm going to be a great parent. Preparation says, let me heal from my past, learn patience, and study how to build a healthy home. Many people are frustrated because they've mistaken faith for magic. They think God will just drop opportunities in their laps. But God doesn't anoint laziness. He doesn't reward unpreparedness. Doors don't open to those who knock with empty hands. They open to those who come ready to contribute. Preparation gives you confidence. When the opportunity comes, you won't panic. You'll perform. A boxer doesn't win the fight in the ring. He wins it in training. By the time he steps into the arena, the outcome is already decided by the work he did in private. Planning and preparation are your private victories. They position you for public impact. Faith must have a foundation. If you say you believe God will send you on a global mission, but you don't have a passport, your faith is incomplete. If you say you believe for financial increase, but you haven't learned to manage what you already have, your preparation is lacking. God won't give you what you cannot steward. Planning also protects what you believe. When storms come, and they will, it's your preparation that holds your faith steady. People who prepare can endure. They don't crumble under pressure because they've already built a system to carry their dream. A house built on sand collapses, but one built on rock, on structure, stands tall. Faith that prepares honors God. It says, I believe so deeply, I'm getting ready now. It is impossible to please God without faith, and faith pleases him most when it mirrors his own nature. Thoughtful, strategic, intentional, and prepared. Faith is like a muscle. It grows only when it's used. It doesn't get stronger by thinking or wishing. It grows through resistance, tension, and movement. Planning is one of the most powerful ways to activate your faith because it demands that you move beyond inspiration into implementation. When you write a plan, you step into action. You are no longer just imagining the future. You are shaping it. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, but a plan turns that hope into a process. Every goal you set, every timeline you create, every step you identify becomes spiritual resistance training. It forces your belief to take form. Planning stretches your belief. It exposes the areas where you're vague and forces you to become specific. Vague faith produces vague results. You cannot say, I believe my life will change, and then make no adjustments. What change? By when? Through what means? Planning demands clarity, and clarity increases faith. A young man who believes he'll graduate college in 4 years must outline the courses he'll take, the GPA he must maintain, the internships he'll pursue. Faith says, I'll finish strong. Planning says, here's how I'll manage my time, finances, and energy to get there. Without that plan, his faith remains theoretical. People often avoid planning because it makes the dream feel risky. When something is on paper, it becomes real. Now there's accountability. Now you can measure progress. Now you can see what's missing. That's why planning scares some people. It removes the excuse of ambiguity. But that's also why planning builds faith. It confronts fear with structure. The Israelites had faith that God would give them the promised land, but they still had to walk through the wilderness. They had to fight battles. They had to manage food, follow leadership, organize tribes, and build systems. Their belief in God's promise didn't remove their responsibility, it activated it. Planning moves your faith from the heart to the hands. It brings heaven's vision into earth's context. It takes what you see in your spirit and translates it into action steps that people can understand. That's what makes it so powerful. When others see your plan, they begin to believe in your vision. Faith is contagious, but plans make it transferable. When you plan, you also open the door for divine adjustments. God can redirect what's already in motion. It's hard to steer a parked car, but when you're moving, when you're acting on your plan, God can guide you more easily. He can close one door and open another. He can reroute you because you're moving by faith. Planning also silences the inner critic. When you have a plan, doubt has less room to speak. You can say to yourself, yes, it's hard, but I've laid out the path. Yes, it's uncertain, but I know my next step. That confidence builds momentum, and momentum is often the difference between quitting and succeeding. When you work a plan, you train your spirit to expect results. You're no longer hoping things happen. You're preparing for them. That expectation shifts your mindset from victim to victor. You start to act like the outcome is inevitable, not optional. Planning is faith in strategy form. It's the language of belief translated into the actions of the present. It's not a replacement for faith. It's the evidence that your faith is alive and working. Every time you sit down to plan, every time you rewrite your goals, every time you evaluate your progress, your faith is doing push-ups. Faith is a journey, not a magic trick. It's a process that unfolds step by step. Without a plan, you have no way of knowing where you are in that journey. Faith becomes frustrating when you can't measure it. That's why planning is so essential. It gives you a way to track the movement of your belief. Imagine someone saying they believe in God for financial breakthrough, but they have no budget, no savings plan, no financial goals, no knowledge of how to manage what they have. That's not faith in action. That's a vague hope. But when you sit down and create a financial plan, you start seeing progress. Maybe you're not rich today, but you save $100 this month. That's faith made measurable. Progress fuels perseverance. When you can look back and say, this time last year I was stuck, but now I've moved forward. It keeps you going. Even if you're not where you want to be yet, a plan allows you to celebrate where you are. Without it, you'll feel like you're doing everything and getting nowhere. Jesus didn't just move aimlessly from town to town. He had direction, timing, and purpose. When he fed the 5,000, he had people sit in groups. That detail matters. It shows that he moved in structure, not chaos, and because of that order, there were 12 baskets of leftovers. When your life has structure, your faith leaves overflow. Without a plan, even miracles leak away. A vision without a plan is just a wish. But once you break it down into actionable steps, it becomes a roadmap. You begin to say, in 30 days, I'll be here. In 90 days, I'll have this done. You set milestones. You create check-ins. You adjust course. Now your faith isn't floating, it's walking. Consider the example of someone training for a marathon. It's not enough to say, I believe I'll finish. That belief has to be supported by weeks and months of structured preparation. They track their miles. They measure pace. They know their nutrition. They log rest days. That's what faith with a plan looks like. Intentional progress backed by consistent action. God is not only concerned with your vision, He's invested in your development. That means He often won't move you to the next level until you've demonstrated stewardship over your current one. And without a plan, you can't prove that. A plan is your evidence. It says, here's what I've been doing. Here's how I've grown. Here's the fruit of my faith. Even in business, investors don't fund ideas, they fund strategies. If someone pitches an idea but has no plan to execute it, no timeline, no projection, no team structure, the answer will be no. Faith works the same way. You may have a divine idea, but if you don't develop a practical plan, you won't get the backing you're believing for. Plans turn passion into discipline. Many people start strong and then fade, not because they lack faith, but because they lack structure. They don't know what progress looks like, so they assume nothing is happening. But when you track progress, you can encourage yourself. You can look at your journal, your checklist, your goals, and say, this is working. Progress can be slow, but when it's measurable, it's motivational. It proves that faith is doing its job. When your faith moves from inspiration to implementation, every day has meaning. You stop guessing and start growing. You become accountable to your own future. Faith is not irresponsible. It is not reckless. It is calculated courage. It dares to believe the impossible, but it builds toward it one brick at a time. A plan shows heaven you're ready. It shows people you're serious. And it shows yourself that your belief is working. Distraction is the silent assassin of destiny. It doesn't come loudly. It creeps in slowly. It shows up as good ideas that aren't God's ideas, as urgency that's not connected to purpose, and as busyness that disguises a lack of direction. Without a plan, it's easy to drift. You start reacting instead of building. You get pulled into other people's priorities and neglect your own. A plan gives you focus. It reminds you of what matters most. When you're clear about your vision and how you intend to get there, it becomes easier to say no. You stop entertaining things that look good but lead nowhere. You stop wasting energy on distractions because you have a compass. Distractions can even wear a spiritual mask. You might say yes to every opportunity, every meeting, every urgent need, thinking it's obedience. But without a plan, you can't distinguish between what's a divine assignment and what's just noise. Clarity through planning helps you filter your choices. Discouragement is another enemy of faith. It creeps in when you don't see results, when you feel overwhelmed, or when life throws unexpected delays your way. A plan won't prevent discouragement, but it helps you fight through it. When you're discouraged, your plan reminds you of the bigger picture. It says, keep going. You're further than you think. Think about Nehemiah again. While rebuilding the wall, he faced criticism, threats, and exhaustion. But because he had a plan, he stayed focused. He assigned tasks, he positioned gods. He built with one hand and held a weapon with the other. The plan didn't stop the attack, but it protected the vision. A plan breaks big dreams into small steps. This matters because discouragement often comes when the goal feels too far away. If all you see is the mountaintop, you'll feel unqualified to climb. But if you divide the journey into stages, you build momentum. Each step becomes a victory. Each task completed becomes fuel to keep moving. When you plan your priorities, you also protect your peace. You don't wake up every day in panic, wondering what to do. You have direction, you have structure. Even when life throws you a curveball, you're not derailed. You're simply delayed. A plan doesn't make you rigid, it makes you resilient. People who lack a plan often live in comparison. They look at someone else's progress and feel behind. But planning brings personal accountability. It says, this is my race, my pace, my path. You stop measuring your success by someone else's finish line. You stay rooted in your own process. Planning also exposes your weaknesses before life does. It helps you see the gaps early so you can build support, gain knowledge, or shift direction. That way, when trials come, and they will, you're not thrown off. You've already prepared. You've already fortified the weak spots. Discouragement loses its grip when you're moving in purpose. Even if the process is slow, the structure gives you strength. Even if doors close, your plan reminds you of your destination. You begin to see obstacles as detours, not dead ends. Distractions lose their appeal when your focus is sharp. You stop chasing everything that glitters. You stop saying yes to people who drain your energy. You protect your time, your creativity, and your anointing. That's what a plan does. It acts like a shield around your faith. Planning doesn't eliminate hardship. It equips you for it. It helps you remember what you said yes to, even when life makes you want to quit. It gives your faith a foundation that feelings cannot shake. And when your emotions try to derail you, your plan calls you back to purpose. God doesn't respond to need, he responds to faith. And faith is expressed through obedience, action, and preparation. When you make a plan, you create space for God to get involved. You invite him into the process. A plan is not a replacement for God, it's an invitation for his presence to rest upon your efforts. When Moses was given the task to lead the Israelites out of Egypt, he didn't just walk blindly into Pharaoh's palace. God gave him instructions, details, and a process. The plagues didn't happen randomly. They followed a sequence. Moses had to obey step by step. It was a divine partnership. God provided the power, but Moses had to carry the plan. Many people wait for God to show up before they move, but faith starts the motion. When you plan in faith, heaven notices. It shows God that you are serious, that you are aligning your actions with his promise. He doesn't move in confusion. He moves in clarity. When you lay out a vision and take the first step, you're saying, God, I'm ready for you to do what only you can do. The woman with the issue of blood didn't just hope for healing. She made a plan. She said to herself, if I can just touch the hem of his garment, I will be healed. That wasn't random. It was intentional. She navigated the crowd. She positioned herself. She pressed through. Her plan was clear, and her faith activated the miracle. Planning demonstrates expectation. When a farmer plants seeds, he's not guessing. He's expecting. He prepares the soil. He studies the seasons. He maps out his harvest. And in return, nature responds. God created the laws of sowing and reaping. He honors those who prepare with expectation. When you plan, you plant. When you execute that plan, you water, and God gives the increase. Divine favor often meets you at the point of plan. Ruth didn't know how everything would unfold when she followed Naomi back to Bethlehem. But she had a plan. She went to the fields to glean. She didn't sit around waiting for provision to knock. Her faith moved her. And in that place of effort, she met Boaz. Her destiny was activated because she showed up with intention. God blesses stewardship. When he sees that you're managing what you've been given with purpose, he increases your capacity. Planning is stewardship in action. It says, this is what I've been entrusted with. Let me multiply. It's the principle in the parable of the talents. Those who planned and produced were rewarded. The one who hid his gift received nothing. Prayer and planning are not enemies. One fuels the other. You pray to receive vision, and you plan to walk it out. You pray for guidance, and then you write the blueprint. Prayer invites God into your mind. Planning gives him access to your calendar. When you combine the two, you experience synergy between heaven and earth. When Noah was told to build the ark, it came with a design. God didn't just say, build something. He gave measurements, materials, and specifications. Noah didn't guess. He followed divine instruction. That's the essence of planning in partnership with God. You don't just build what you want. You build according to divine dimensions. Planning also allows God to redirect you. When you're moving, even in the wrong direction, it's easier for him to steer you than if you're stagnant. Paul planned to preach in Asia, but the Spirit redirected him to Macedonia. God didn't rebuke him for having a plan. He honored the movement and adjusted the direction. When you plan in faith, you position yourself to be used. You become a vessel, not just a dreamer. You say, here I am, Lord, not just waiting, but working, not just believing, but building. And that kind of posture draws divine favor. Heaven backs the hands of the diligent. And planning is the first act of diligent faith. Vision that cannot be communicated cannot be accomplished. No matter how powerful your dream is, if others can't see it, understand it, and connect to it, it will remain limited. A plan gives structure to your vision. It makes it transferable, shareable, and scalable. It allows others to come alongside you and say, I can help you build that. Nehemiah had a vision to rebuild the wall. But what made the vision contagious was the plan. He didn't just say, God told me. He walked through the city. He assessed the damage. He created assignments. He gave clear instructions. That's what inspired the people. They saw more than a dreamer. They saw a builder with a blueprint. Leadership without planning is chaos in disguise. You may have charisma, but if people can't follow your vision with clarity, they will burn out. A plan gives people direction. It shows them where to start, what's expected, and how success will be measured. When people understand the steps, they can own the mission. Consider a startup founder with a great product idea. Investors won't write checks just because the founder is passionate. They want to see a business plan, market analysis, revenue projections, team structure. Why? Because passion without a plan is risky. A clear plan builds trust. It shows that the vision is not just emotional, it's executable. When you plan, you create alignment, everyone pulling in the same direction, everyone knowing their role. In a family, a church, a company, or a ministry, planning turns chaos into clarity. It brings unity. Without it, people are scattered, confused, and ineffective. But with it, synergy becomes possible. Even Jesus operated with a plan for transferring vision. He didn't just preach, he mentored. He trained 12 men intentionally. He gave them assignments. He sent them out in pairs. He explained parables privately. He clarified purpose. That's how the gospel spread. His plan was the strategy that multiplied the message beyond one man's voice. Planning also allows you to delegate. Many leaders feel overwhelmed not because they lack help, but because they lack clarity. When you have a plan, you can say, here's what I need help with. Here's your role. Here's the outcome I expect. That empowers others to run with the vision. It builds a team, not just an audience. A written vision becomes a shared vision. When others can see the road ahead, they can prepare themselves. They can bring their strengths. They can anticipate challenges. They can innovate within structure. And that's when momentum happens. Not just one person pushing alone, but a group moving together. Vision becomes sustainable when it's supported by a structure. You can inspire a room, but only a plan can sustain an organization. You can preach a powerful sermon, but only a strategy will build a ministry. Emotion fades. Inspiration wears off. But a well-crafted plan carries the vision when feelings fail. The most powerful movements in history were backed by organized plans. Civil rights leaders didn't just protest. They strategized, they trained, they mapped out routes. They knew the law. That's why their message created change. They turned conviction into coordinated action. That's what faith with a plan can do. It changes environments. When your vision is packaged in a plan, people don't just hear you, they believe you. They trust you, they follow you. Because now it's not just a dream, it's a direction. It's not just a concept, it's a course. And that's what separates wishful thinking from transformational leadership. The power of your faith is not just in what you believe, it's in what you're building. God honors vision, but he multiplies what's prepared. If you want heaven to move, you must give it something to move through. Your plan is not a limitation of your faith. It is the vehicle of your faith. Too many people are waiting on God, while God is waiting on them to write it down, to structure it out, to take the first step. You're not stuck because you lack faith. You're stuck because your faith hasn't found a plan to work with. And until you organize your vision, it will stay in your heart and never show up in your life. A plan turns your belief into results. It makes your goals measurable, your journey clear, and your purpose transferable. It fights distraction. It shields you from discouragement. It welcomes God into every part of your process. So ask yourself today, what do you really believe for? And where is the plan that proves it? Don't just talk faith, walk faith. Don't just dream design. Don't just wait work. Because faith demands a plan, and when you move with purpose, heaven will move with you.